Welcome back. Hopefully, you've come back. If you're here for the first time, welcome for the first time to the Mama Bear Diaries. I'm your host. My name is Deborah Giesling. I'm a mom and an advocate for my son and others who have serious mental illness. Today's primer is number 4. We're going to talk about where do the seriously mentally ill live and what does their life look like. Hopefully you've thought about that before, but if you haven't, well, I hope after today you do. And my husband and I are really passionate about this issue. We always have been from the beginning. And if you want to learn more about our vision, go to p82homes.org, and we have a whole section on there about help us open up a home. That's our goal. So we'll be talking about that much more in the months to come. But today we're going to just do a little bit of background work. And again, this is a primer. And we're going to talk about how we got here, how we got to the place in our country where we have an exorbitant amount of people with serious mental illness on our streets and in our jails, in our criminal justice system. And you know why they're there? Because our mental illness system is failing them. And guess what? We're letting our leaders fail them. We're letting our leaders ignore this. So let's do some background, again, putting the pieces together. And so that kind of helps. We could learn from the mistakes we've made and kind of what the need is and where we need to go with this. I talked before about President John F. Kennedy's Community Mental Health Act that he signed just weeks before he was assassinated, and with the goal of moving everyone from our institutions into the community. A very lofty goal, but it never really came to fruition. Instead, what really happened was that the federal government in the states kind of went into this hot potato game over the years of offloading the responsibility for this group of people. Because quite frankly, there was no leadership and no one really cared. No one cared. Our politicians just really have failed on this issue. Now, there was another president, President George W. Bush, in 2001. He put together a commission. It was called the President's New Freedom Commission on Mental Health. And the goal was to look at how can we, the promise was, it's called Achieving the Promise, transforming mental health care in America. We transformed it all right. Let's talk about their top 3, what they probably got all these mental health experts around the table. And I say mental health, they probably didn't get people that were familiar with the needs of the seriously mentally ill, because look at the number 1 recommendation they came away with in 2002. That this is what they thought prevented people from getting care. Stigma. The stigma that surrounds mental illness. Do you think the people that are living on the streets, eating out of garbage cans, revolving through our criminal justice system, revolving through our hospital system to the streets, do you think they care about stigma? Do you think the families care about stigma? Our country has spent millions of dollars on anti-stigma campaigns. And today, everyone talks about mental health. Go on Substack, go anywhere and find all the platforms that have to do with mental health. No one seems to have a problem talking about it. Stigma is gone, but stigma never really was the problem. They also came up with a couple other recommendations. They were okay, but they were weak. They did not address the real needs of the seriously mentally ill. Well, that's one thing that has had a ripple effect for years, quite frankly. And then let me get my papers here. Then 1999. This was before the President's New Freedom Commission. In 1999, there was a Supreme Court decision called the Olmsted decision, community integration for everyone. Again, all these good terms, good ideas. Everyone should live in community. Everybody should be independent. Yes, yes, yes. I say yes to that. However, there are some people who cannot, and they need our help and they need our assistance. And so in 1999, this case was brought to the Supreme Court. It was brought on the behalf of two women that had mental illness and developmental disabilities, and they were being held too long in an institution in Georgia. And so the Supreme Court ruled that public entities must provide community-based services to persons with disabilities when, listen to this phrase, such services are appropriate. It's a little section there that we kind of ignore. And so everyone lauded this decision. Everyone celebrated this decision. We don't want people held in institutions for too long, longer than they need to be there, or inappropriate setting when they can be independent and they can make it. We want that. I mean, we celebrate that in our culture. But we were too aggressive. The Department of Justice aggressively enforced this in the states, and still does to this day. But however, the mental health systems, this gives them a loophole. This gives them an excuse to move people out. They've got to move out. They're ready. They're clinically ready to go into the community. They deem them ready, and so they give them the boot to a lower level of care without considering if that is an appropriate setting, especially in this in the mental illness system with the seriously mentally ill. Now let me read Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She wrote an extensive opinion, a piece. I recommend looking that up online. Let me read one part of it that is so compelling. She says the ADA is not reasonably read to impel states to phase out institutions, placing patients in need of close care at risk. Nor is it the ADA's mission to drive states to move institutionalized patients into an inappropriate setting, such as a homeless shelter, a placement that the state proposed and then it retracted for these women. Some individuals, like LC and EW, in prior years, they may need institutional care from time to time to stabilize acute psychiatric symptoms. For others, no placement outside the institution may ever be appropriate. A liberal Supreme Court judge wrote this piece. We blatantly ignore this piece. No one holds these systems accountable to this. No one holds our leaders accountable to this. That is exactly what our system does. It kicks people that are the sickest and who need the most care out the back door to the streets, directly to the streets. They'll place them in a place that is it's risky. It's a place that's risky. For example, our own son, when he was put into a behavioral health residential facility, within just 3 months, the state moved for him to be moved out because the state said, well, your son needs a higher level of care. Well, there was no higher level of care in the state of Arizona. And instead of offering us a higher level of care, they offered us a lower level of care. They offered us an apartment setting with somebody else who had a mental illness. So no, they weren't placing him out in the street, but they were placing him in a setting where he surely would have ended up in the streets. Another place that they offered us when they were trying to pressure us to move him out of this residential facility, which my husband and I fought back. And if you listen to the Fixed on Jesus podcast, I did an interview with Center Church, a 3-part interview where we tell more of this story. But one of the places that our state offered us during that time when they were trying to push my son out was a boot camp. A boot camp for somebody with a disability. schizophrenia. He doesn't need discipline. He needs support. He has a disability. Does the Olmsted decision not apply to him? Does it not apply to people with severe mental illness? We just blatantly ignore it. We've just ignored it. And so this has had a huge effect on systems, and it's given them, like I said, a loophole to say, well, we've got to move them out. We've got, the Olmsted decision says everyone's got to live in the community. And so some people need more support in the community, and we don't make allowances for that. And so it's very sad. And that's something my husband and I recognized early on. And so that's why housing has become one of our passions. In our state, we do, I want to backtrack a little bit. We do have one higher level of care. We have one state hospital in Arizona. It's called the Arizona State Hospital. It sits on 90 acres in downtown Phoenix. It is a giant facility. It is older, but in the Arnold versus Sarn lawsuit that was brought against the state in the 80s, they brought some great things. We have more ACT teams, assertive community treatment teams. We have the system that we have in place. We have the court-ordered process. We have treatment centers, evaluation centers. We have the court process. We have a lot of things that they brought, more staff, more clinics. My son probably wouldn't be alive without this lawsuit. But one thing that they did in this, again, this grand idea of everyone can live in the community, is they put a limit on the beds at the state hospital for Maricopa County at 55. 55 beds can only be used by residents of Maricopa County at any given time. Now, I visited the state hospital. It is a beautiful campus. It has a swimming pool. It has a gym. It has an entire top floor that sits empty, completely empty. We need so much more work there. Every governor has kicked the opportunity to bring accountability to this hospital, to make it a truly a place that's excellent and delivers care, and that we should be proud of. Instead, we just kind of hide it away and tuck it away and say, no, it's fine. I'll let the next administration, deal with that problem. And meanwhile, we have people that are suffering. And for the most part, there really is no light being shined on the level of care that's being offered in that hospital. So we've got two problems. We don't have accountability there, and we also have these empty beds that could be being used if we made this a priority. But we don't have that kind of leadership. We have not had that for a long time. So it's very, very sad that that just a few people can get care. And then also in our state, every state is different, but we have behavioral health residential facilities. And my son, that was the one that he was staying in when the state wanted to move him out. Every single one of those are temporary. The state's insurance company, they decide when an individual's ready to leave. Many times without even having visited them, just on the word of a clinician, it's time for this person to go on, especially if they're too difficult to care for. And I sat on a legislative committee where Access gave us data, and we had questions, and they gave us actual real-time data, and this was several years ago. We learned that those residential facilities have a 64% readmit rate. So people are just recycling in this merry-go-round. And a lot of times they get caught up in the criminal justice system. If they do something, let's say they urinate at a Circle K, they have to go to the bathroom in public and they get arrested. They get a court date. They can't make the court date. They get a warrant out for their arrest. It's just a vicious cycle. These are people that we are ignoring and discarding every day in this country. And so my husband and I have tried to look at this every way we can to say, how can we do housing? We thought about doing a behavioral health residential facility. We've thought about other possibilities, but we just decided to go a little bit rogue. We want to create a model that can be replicated and that really springs up from the community, a community that really decides to start caring and want to do something better. And so stay tuned because I'll be talking about that a lot more. And then hopefully you can, I've linked it a couple times on my Substack, but listen to the interview of our story of how we got care for our son and how our church was just stellar in supporting us. We all learned together, and we would love to see more churches do this and get a heart and a vision for this. So thank you for listening. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. Stay with me. Number 5 is going to be coming up soon. And now it's time for the outro. And I got a message for my son. Brown Eyes, I love you. I love you. We are not giving up. And you are the inspiration for what we do. It's all for you, Brown Eyes. Thank you.